Thank y'all for being here. My name is Ilana. My pronouns are she, hers. I'm with the civilians, and I'm in New York City, or what we commonly call New York City, and the civilians want to acknowledge that the Munsee, Lenape, and Aknarse communities and their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations, because while we're not physically in our offices, the civilians acknowledges that our office is located on their ancestral land, and I here tonight am on Lenape land in Manhattan. And if you'd like to let us know in the chat where you are right now, please go ahead and do so. You can let us know where in the country or around the world you are, and if you happen to be on ancestral land, you have a link in the chat that will tell you where you are and whose land you're on. And we're here to talk about Black Feminist Video Game, the show you just got to see by Darrel Alejandro Holnes and directed by Victoria Collado, featuring Kyla Jeanne and Christon Andell. And so I'm going to tell you just a little bit about myself. The most important thing for you to know is that my favorite video game growing up was NBA Jam. Vicky, Kyla, Darrel, Christon, tell us something about yourself, what you're doing on the show, and your favorite game.
Sure. Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm the director, she, her, hers, and I'm gonna go old school, Super Mario. But it has to be the one where you have to eject it and you have to go to it. That's my favorite. I feel like that's legit.
I would say that, hi everyone, I am Darrel Alejandro Holnes and I'm the playwright. And I love so many video games, it's hard to pick, but I was playing a lot of Zelda on my Nintendo Switch when I was writing this play. And I also have been recently remembering what it was like to play Mortal Kombat, because the movie just came out on HBO Max. So those games are like in my head at the moment.
I'm Kyla. I'm on Lenape land as well. And my favorite video game is probably Minecraft, honestly. If I had to go old school, it'd be Mario Sunshine, the one you'd play on a GameCube. I don't remember the name, but I loved that game.
Hi, I'm Christon Andell, and I play Jonas. And my favorite video game is Lego Star Wars, the original trilogy.
That's such a rad game, yes. Snaps. So tonight, you all, we welcome you to ask questions of these four incredible artists who love great games, and to either do that by raising your hand, which if you look at the bottom of your Zooms, if you're on your computers, you will see a bunch of little things like participants and chat and reactions with a little smiley face. That's what you're looking for. You'll see a little raised hand. Put your hands up. You can lower it, we'll lower it for you, but if you change your mind, you can do that. And just like, Sarah has up there, I have up here, and we'll find you to answer your question or ask you to ask your question for us. And we'll spotlight you, so please have your video on if you're comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, that's okay. You can just take yourself off mute, ask your question. We also ask that if you'd like to, if you're not comfortable just sharing out loud, you can also write your question in the chat. So you'll either raise your hand and ask your question when we call on you, or you'll write it in the chat. I will get us started while you think about your questions and start putting them either in the chat or raising your hands. So Darrel, will you give us just a quick, for anybody who might not have read or heard you talk about already, sense of the question at the center of this play that drove you to need to write it?
You know, I really discovered this play as I was going through interviews that I had collected when I was in Berlin. And I was in the R&D civilians group when I was going through these different interviews and trying to select one to write a play about, or that was inspired by one of these interviews. And I stumbled upon an interview that I had collected 5 years prior from a friend of mine in Berlin who is biracial and a graduate student who is on the spectrum, and told me the story of his adolescence, which very interestingly overlapped with my own story of adolescence and coming of age. And we both turned to video games to escape all sorts of like bullying and different challenges around identity while we were growing up. And that story always resonated with me and stuck with me. And we also talked a lot about intersectionality, neurodiversity, and Black feminism. And we found that we had a lot in common there. And so that is part of how the story came to be. But I will say, to your question, Alana, you know, what's at the center of this, I just kept on thinking about how my mother has saved my life so many times, and how so many Black women who are part of my community and part of my both biological and chosen family have saved me continually. And it's just so clear to me that Black women are saving the world. And I include Black trans women as part of that as well, and Black femmes of all sorts. And I just don't think that they should have to do it alone. And I started asking myself different questions about, you know, what does it mean to be outside of, you know, that identity. I'm not a Black woman. I don't identify as femme either. And but want to practice allyship, want to incorporate that into your social practice, into your daily practice. And it's really how all of those things came together that ended up making the play. So thinking about Stacey Abrams, thinking about Michelle Obama, you know, thinking about all of these Black women that are out there making a difference in our lives every day, even if we see them or if we don't, you know, and then the ones whose names we don't know, right, as well.
Thank you, Darrel. Yeah, I think it seems so apparent just in the moments when I would poke my head into the process that was such a heartbeat of the conversation that y'all were having. So Vicky, I wonder if you, and feel free, Christon and Kyla too, to chime in if you'd like, can tell us a little bit about how that core drive was a part of your process, the stuff you talked about in rehearsal.
Yeah, I think something that was, the rehearsal process was very short and very long at the same time. Mm-hmm. And one of the best gifts that we got was that we had 2 weeks to just workshop and really talk through the play. Something that was interesting was really giving room for voices to be heard and making the space, and the actors can tell me if they agree or disagree, but really making the space for everybody to be able to speak what they know, what they didn't know, talking about things. I always feel like level 2 was actually one conversation that I was like, oh my God, this is the play happening, right? Because I found interesting that it's do as she says or break the glass. And I thought that was so smart from Darrel to just kind of, that we got into like a pretty heated debate. I don't know if Kyla remembers this. I don't know if Kyla was there, but we got into a pretty heated debate as to what is the thing that's supposed to happen. And so I think creating the safe space for everybody's thoughts to come in, and also allowing for me, it was important that the Black women in the cast were the ones kind of leading the charge in that conversation, because they know it better than anybody else. Like nobody else in that room was going to impose their experience on them. So that was kind of how that core kind of kind of went through the whole process, and it's been the heartbeat ever since.
Christon and Kyla, when you got into the room, well, what were you expecting at first? And that's such a general question, but really, right? Because when we first cut to I think all of you who are joining us, we got some folks from that are at Lafayette, yeah, and so y'all are in school and understand the theater process a good bit. And you know that feeling going into your first day of rehearsal. So what were you expecting and how were you surprised? Whoever would like to go first. You were both on mute.
Okay, I'll go. What was I expecting? I guess I was expecting the unexpected. I was expecting any and everything, especially it being on Zoom. I was like, you know, are we gonna do ice? Like, what's gonna happen, really? And this is the first project I've been a part of, but there's a whole video game attached to it. So I was really coming into it like, you know what, let's just see what happens, really. A very pleasant surprise, kind of going off of what Vicky was saying, was how open the room was. And the questions she would ask me would allow me to explore Sabine as opposed to like being led to a direct answer. They were questions that really like provoked me and made me think about who she is as a person. And you realize like her relationship with Jonas, you know, that's a real thing. Like Black women feeling like I'm giving. And what am I getting back? And that's a real part of their relationship that I think, you know, we improvised a lot. And I feel like that came out in the improv. So it was a really open and just like calming process. As an actor, you can go in and be like, how do I create this character from absolutely nothing? And that's terrifying. But when you're able to have those questions and have good, kind people just ask you and push you as an artist, it's really helpful.
So going into it, for me, I had mad anxiety. I was like, I was just like, okay, so I haven't done much theater, but I have done a lot of voiceover. So this should be something down my alley, you know. I've been in a whole room full of voiceover artists before and worked on one project, but this time it was actually on Zoom. So, but it was still a bit nerve-wracking. I actually didn't have. I turned everybody's cameras off because I was too scared to like, you know, talk to anybody or look at anyone's faces while we're going through the reading. I didn't want to stumble up on my words because, you know, like sometimes I struggle, like I'm struggling right now to actually get my words out. And yeah.
That's very relatable, and you're doing great. It makes all the sense in the world. We're all nodding because we all know that feeling very, very well, especially now all of us on Zoom. And that's the thing. So we've been spending a year more now in this world on our computers, looking at our loved ones and colleagues on computers. And here we were making this show from Miami, Gainesville, and all over Florida, all over New York City, with the playwright traveling around the country, people in DC building a video game, you know, folks everywhere. And so we found ourselves scattered, being able to create together. What was it like to be creating a piece together with so many different mediums, you know, through the screen? And how did you find ways to connect? Because such a big piece of creating art is connecting. How did you find ways to connect that was unique to this process for you? Anybody, whoever would like to take it, of the four of you.
Well, I can talk about conversations that I had with Vicky, as well as the civilians team, and Kieran Chitanvis, our filmmaking consultant. And then, maybe Vicky, you'd want to talk about working with Julia and Aaron and everyone on the stream team to make this happen. So once we knew for certain that we would be, that this was going to be produced remotely, I thought it was, we were sort of like, should it be Zoom? Should it be Twitch? Should it be Google Meet? Should it be whatever? And then just had this moment where I was like, it should be everything. And what I love about that moment is that I didn't really know what everything looked like yet, but I know that it was giving myself and giving Vicky a lot of permission to figure it out. And so I'm really excited by what Vicky has been able to put together, also with the team, that she's about to talk about. And it was also really great to work with our filmmaking consultant, Kieran Chitanvis, who also helped us and helped me in particular really think through what this play could look like with more cinematic elements, and bringing that sort of like filmic aspect to it. And lastly, I would say that as a playwright, in so many opportunities that I'm given really ask me to always take my idea and like funnel it through a narrow development process that like then produces this thing that we can sell tickets to. And it's usually just this very narrow process that takes this large idea and in certain ways can reduce it to a single form. And what I love so much about this process, about working with the civilians, about working with Vicky and the team, is that there was no real like reducing it. It was like, oh, okay, this play needs a choreographer, great. Oh, this play needs, a live stream team. Oh, this play needs video editors. Oh, this play needs, a chat overlay. Oh, this play needs, and we were able to build this form together. And I say this form, but it's really multiple forms. And I love that this concept and this story gets told in multiple forms. And I hope that it continues to grow in the way that it's presented once we also have the opportunity to produce it in person and, keep the interaction and the interactive component alive. It was just really a joy to bring to life. And I'm just so thrilled to have this team's support.
I'm not going to repeat everything that Darrel said, but everything that Darrel said. And I think something that was important to me, if we divide like the space into two, right? Like if we divide the people on stage, which are the actors, and then the team, was trying as hard as we can to make it to not lose the heart, which is what I think usually is found when you're in the room together. I wasn't sure if it was going to happen, and the fact that in 2 weeks, the actors truly only spent together 2 weeks, and then everything was done piecemeal. And you have Christon and Kyla, who actually have like kept going with the live components of the piece. And so trying to build family and trying to make it super important to them and not it be like, hey, this is just a gig. This is actually like, you're part of this process. I was like, I'm not sure if this is going to happen, but it did. And I think it takes effort from every single human being, giving their heart and their attention. Also giving computer breaks is very important. There is like Zoom fatigue is very, 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 very real. And understanding that like that stepping away is just as important as being in the space. And I also think I think the power of imagination is amazing because you can kind of forget that you're actually in Zoom and that you're not in the same room. Like you forget. I feel like I am actually with Christon and Kyla when we're in rehearsal. And for the team, like the other half of this is the creative team. Ilana knows that I use this metaphor a lot. I've said that putting this play together is like a braid. This is not a normal process. There are 3 processes. Like the video game process is like the longest process, and then there's the film, which is like the middle of length, and then theater actually happens rather quickly compared to the other 2. And so trying to find that flow was not an easy feat, but having a team that had patience and that didn't give up ever, I think was vital, super vital. And I hope it comes through because their effort and their really tremendous work is what makes all of this come to life.
We have 2 audience. Oh yes, first there's Julia. Oh, she went away. This is part of our stream team.
Hey y'all, doing work in the background, but me and Jeremy are here and we're so proud of you all.
There's Jeremy. So these 2 are basically backstage on Zoom every night, and they have designed the whole stream and chat experience. It is so cool. It is so cool just to watch them learn, relearn, adjust, and really create a whole new form of design that we've all been blown away by over and over and over again. Yeah, that was a very impressive high five you guys gave each other through Zoom. That was amazing. So I have 2 quick, very exciting questions from our wonderful audience members. Our first is from Allison, who has said that she will join us here on screen. So I am very excited to invite Allison Blatt up to ask her question. Allison, there you are.
I hope not disappointing. I'm at Lafayette College, and we're so happy to have helped to bring this to the world. Glad to see some of our students here. I wondered, especially given some of the controversies that we've read about lately, I'd like to know more about how you worked with the neurodiversity consultant.
Well, I'll kick it off, but we all had we had the privilege to work with Cortland, and we all had touch base with him. He did such a fantastic job on kind of running down the script and really explaining like how this could be even more authentic. And I'll let Darrel respond to, because Darrel really went back in there to really bring in all the consultation that Cortland had given. Julia worked a lot directly with him, talking about speed and tempo and colors and what it meant to bring in new footage. He and I talked a lot about what does it mean to pass on information, and really passing like some of the editing footage, really talking through with him, hey, is this a moment that you think would be a good moment, like would work? And one of the greatest, I think that something that made me happy was in our very rough, like I want to say dress rehearsal or so, that the one thing that Cortland said was that this felt authentic to the neurodiverse experience, especially people on the spectrum, and that he felt that the community was taken care of. And to me, that was absolutely vital. And I think more on the team, because the team really, you know, they could have just taken the note and been like, yeah, we'll fix that later for those specific performances. But Julia, for example, was constantly thinking about that, was constantly thinking about how that's going to come into play and taking care of that. So that's something that I'm very proud of. But Darrel, how was it for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a really wonderful experience. It was a learning experience. And, you know, our team really took it to heart. And I know that the video game makers also received notes and incorporated them to make sure that this was an accessible performance. You know, for me, I have folks who are neurodiverse in my family, And I know that they don't really have the opportunity very often to see themselves at the center of many of the stories that are told through popular media, especially theater. And, there are very few stories that center neurodiverse characters, even fewer that center neurodiverse characters who are Black. And so it was very important to me that that not only the story be resonant with them, but also that the show itself be accessible. And so, I was thrilled when the civilians found and hired Cortland, and to have conversations with them about the play and the process, and to have Cortland be a part of the team. And so, for me as a playwright, I really love dramaturgs, and Cortland has a dramaturgical brain. And it's, I thought that Cortland's comments were just very much in line with a conversation that has already been happening with Vicky, and already happening with Alana, and already happening with Steve, and with Margaret, and with, folks who had already been a part of the team. And so I think it just made us richer, and made this experience overall more accessible, and as well more representative of the community and the stories that come from that community. And so I'm thrilled that we've had Cortland as a part of the team.
We have one last question from Sarah. Sarah Fartun-Himes. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much. I enjoyed it very much. I hope that I can get my words together, because I'm joining you from Germany, and English is not my native. I'm not a native speaker, and it's kind of like, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm glad that I'm still awake. And thank you so much. I enjoyed it so much, speaking from a Black German feminist perspective. I'm planning to write an article for Nachtkritik. It's a German theater journal. And I'd love to know if you feel like sharing, was the narration kind of like choose your own adventure? Could it really change how we decide yes, no, yes? That's yeah.
Absolutely. That was from Darrel, do you want to talk a little bit about that? And then I can talk about how directorially that affected, but.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, welcome, and thank you for staying up late in order to catch us. That's really meaningful. And I had to learn about branch narrative, and, in order to write the different possibilities into this script. And it was, I will tell you that this script went through a lot of rewrites. And when I was doing the branch narratives in particular, I just remember thinking like, but I already figured this play out. Now I have to figure it out again. Just like, But it was a very rewarding process, and, went beyond that, because then that draft also got more feedback, and we made more edits, and it continued to develop beyond that. But I had a conversation with Che Rose, one of the game makers, a few years ago in DC, where he's based, and he was telling me about new style of story games that were out, and how they really engaged narrative possibilities through or by figuring out different pathways for the main characters to get to different steps in their own development. And it reminded me of reading a novel that there's a novel called Hopscotch, where you can read it in any order, and it's sort of like choose your own adventure is a shorthand for that. And so I went back to Hopscotch, actually. I reread it, and I started really thinking about how what it means to kind of like hold many worlds at one time. And I started thinking about many worlds theories in physics, and I started thinking about that Whitman line, that we all contain multitudes, and just thinking about how a game itself contains many worlds within the world of the game. And that was a spirit that sort of like brought more energy to the revisions as I started to create other branches that the characters could follow through the game in order to get on the other side. And so the audience really does have an effect, and the choices that the audience is helping the characters make does influence the narrative and their experience of the game. And in that way, it's also different every night, you know, which is my favorite thing about theater, is that it is different every night. And so we have a little bit of movies, we have a little bit of video game, and we have a little bit of theater, and that theater piece of it is the part that's different every night. So I'm excited about that.
Vicky, Christon,
Thank you so
Kyla,
much.
I'd love to hear and to share with Sarah and everyone just briefly about the process of going through those branches.
Yeah. For me, it was training the actors for war, in a sense, of getting them prepped for anything. I have experience in directing branch narratives, and so the concept was not new. However, waiting for people to respond to take you. In the other past experiences, we totally guided them, whereas this one, they guided us. And so it really puts the actors in a position of knowing how to wait for the response. We have time to work on, like the actors are actually like about 10 seconds ahead of us in real time. So how to not let the audience feel that, how to know where to go. And Allison is totally right. The audience has made the same decisions every time. And they're just really nice people, because if they would make other choices, there's a whole nother fun stuff that would happen. But we have really good people as audience members that make really kind choices for our actors. But Christon and Kyla, how do you want to talk about like what it's actually like to kind of be driven by the audience?
For me, it's a lot of fun just because getting to see, sometimes people will answer A, B, A, B. Sometimes they'll put little comments next to their answer. And it's just like really entertaining to see how different audiences react at different speeds, even though the answers might be the same. The speed at which they react is different. In one night we got a lot of little extra comments, another night it was just A, B, E. So it's exciting, and it keeps you on your toes, which forces you to stay with the piece the whole time, which is very refreshing, because I feel like it can be easy to get lost in a show, but this demands you, like it's constantly demanding you to pay attention and keep up, and the audience demands it. And so it's just exciting. It's invigorating.
Yeah, I agree. Very exciting. As someone who goes live pretty often, I actually went live right before the show started anyway. Yeah, and yeah, it's always, the process was what'd you say, the process in rehearsals and stuff?
Yeah.
I would say it was pretty challenging. Well, for me, at least. I had a lot of monologues to memorize. And but that's what I like. I like to take risks. So
yeah.
I said, you know what? I got to work and I challenged myself. Read the script about like 3 times every day.
Wow.
Just to get it into my system.
Yeah, and it was worth it. And look what how the risk paid off. And I think that is the most joyful thing about this, is seeing you both live inside of this, trust this audience every day, and trust each other and this stream team every day to take us on this journey, because it could change. Allison and Vicky are right. We have such kind audiences that it rarely does. They're very supportive, but we know that it can. And there's all that liveness with the internet that leads us to who knows what. And so there's always that element of trust that all that preparation of reading the script and having, you know, both long and short rehearsal process leads to. So thank you all. We hope you will tell your friends and colleagues and loved ones and family members and anybody who's in the room next to you to come and see this and take this journey and take these risks with Kyla and Christon and our stream team every night. And we keep doing our live shows through Sunday, and we'll have an on-demand performances from May 3rd to the 9th. And well, and Allison, I want to make sure that we ask this question of your students. Hey students, you know where those little reactions are at the bottom of your screen? Allison asks how you felt about the show. Will you tell us with the little reactions how you felt about the show? Yeah, I see some hearts. I see some celebration. Awesome. Thank you all. I'm gonna throw some hearts up too. Thank you all so much for coming. It's been such a joy to have you here. Again, going through May 9th and extending for a couple of weeks. So you'll check us out on our website to find out about that. Going through Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So a little bit later at night on the West Coast. Thank you all so much. Have a great night. I'm gonna play you out with some music while you're chilling. If you're on your way out, yes. Music from the show, if it wants to go. Yes. Thanks, y'all. Every Talkback should end with a dance party. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Darrel. Thank you, Christon. Thank you,